Yesterday we had Dan Morgan on the show. Dan Morgan, Panthers GM. And first of all, if you haven't listened to the full interview, go check it out on our YouTube. It gave a lot of insight into the hows and whys and the planning and the execution of the draft. I thought his input was quite insightful. So 99.9 The Fan on YouTube later today, long after the show is over. Go grab a peek at that interview and see what Dan had to say. But we started off talking about, obviously, their first pick, right? The 8th overall pick, Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver from University of Arizona. And threw everybody off the scent, right? The Jalen Walker was somehow locked in, as every mock drafter and insider said that's who the Panthers were going to take. And obviously that wasn't the deal, right? Because Walker was still on the board, and they went with T-Mac, as they call him. And it's being revealed slowly, maybe, that Bryce Young had quite a strong, compelling case for McMillan, and Dan Morgan was interested in hearing that case. Here's Dan Morgan on how much influence Bryce had on the first pick of their draft.
Bryce, he really doesn't have that big stand on the table type attitude, but he definitely made it known that hey, T-Mac's to me the best receiver in this draft. I would love to work with him. I could tell that he was really excited about him. And in turn I was excited too, and to hear Bryce being excited, it just made me even that much more excited. So it's one of those things where I think the communication was really good, and I think I'd be dumb not to listen to our players.
I'd be dumb not to listen to our players. If we have Dan Morgan on again, I missed the perfect follow-up, which is which players are we talking about, right? How do you work your way into that phone call where it's, hey, what are you thinking? But we'll all watch the tape, get better for next time. I hope everyone recognizes that because that quote came out, right? And I talked about it on social media. We talked about it here on the show, and the reaction was very much, this shows stuff about Bryce, how much the team believes in Bryce, how much he has no excuses, right? That was my take. He now has the back-to-back first-round pick wide receivers. He has the offensive line with all the cash spent, and there's no more excuses. Independent of quarterback, I hope everyone recognizes what a number one wide receiver would do for this offense. If Tetairoa McMillan is what he's cracked up to be, if he reaches the immense potential that he possesses, I hope everyone recognizes what that would do for the offense. And it's why I was saying all offseason they needed a number one wide receiver. I wasn't, and I'll raise my hand on this one. I wasn't convinced it was going to be McMillan, but I knew they needed a number one wide receiver. And as much as Bryce might like T-Mac as a dude, and they're from the same part of the country as far as where they played their high school ball, and they worked out together, as much as he was like, yeah, this is my guy, I hope we draft him, quarterbacks know what a number one does. Quarterbacks know what a number one does. It doesn't just make your number one option better. It makes every option in the passing route better. And this is what we've been talking about. Adam Thielen as a number one, I think, is underwhelming. Adam Thielen as a number two, facing off either out of the slot against a slot corner or against the number two corner, while T-Mac, Tetairoa McMillan, is battling against the number one. I like Thielen in that role so much better. I like Legette as a boomer bust three, right, wide receiver three. And what I mean by that is he's still raw. He's essentially a one-year breakout in college. He had 1 year at South Carolina where he went bananas. If I'm not mistaken, he's actually from a recruiting class that is before Tetairoa McMillan, because McMillan came out after 3 years and Legette came out after 5 the year before. So Legette is raw. I like him in 3 wide receiver formations, right? If you have 3 wide receivers out there, right? You take a tight end off, whatever it is, put him out there. And then when you go 2 wide receiver sets, you might be able to take him off and let him collect himself and talk to him about it. What did you see? What happened on that route? You can develop him in game. Meanwhile, if he's one of your top 2 wide receivers, he's out there most of the time, right? And he doesn't get that same breather moment. I love Jalen Coker as the 4th wide receiver on the team. Mm-hmm. Love it. If you start getting him higher than that at this point in his career, you start to go, second-year undrafted free agents, one of your the three best wide receivers? Well, I hope he is, but I don't know if that's what I want to be putting my bet on. They just needed a 1 to take all 3 of them. And we can go on down the list, but we'll just talk about the main guys. They just needed a number 1 wide receiver to have all of those guys improve all of the slots they now occupy. The trickle-down effect. You get a better wide receiver 1, that means a better wide receiver 2, that means a better wide receiver 3, that means a better wide receiver 4, and you only added 1 guy. That's why Bryce is advocating for T-Mac. And then by the way, once you decide, like, hey, I'm going to advocate for a wide receiver, then you do go find your favorite, or you find the guy you vibe with, you find the guy who you think you have chemistry with, and you let the coaches know. But if Bryce didn't say anything, right? Because I always wonder if that's the case. You know, during every negotiation, it's like, well, the quarterback wants a seat at the table. He wants influence. I always wonder if there's a player who's like, I don't want to watch college tape. I'm just going to focus on me. Y'all pick the players. Let's say that was Bryce. Let's say Bryce was like, hey, I'm going to watch all the film in the world of the defenses we're going to face. I don't want to be scouting guys. I'm not going to have an opinion. Even if that was his vibe. It's still massive for Bryce Young that they drafted Tetairoa McMillan. Now, you know, obviously you could be like, well, if the second option on a play is the tight end, then, you know, that's still Jadeveon Sanders. Okay.
Okay.
That on routes where the first, second, and third read are receivers, every option is better right now than it was before the draft.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 of them. That's huge. That's massive. And not to mention, recently, Travis Hunter, number 2 overall pick, right, the Heisman Trophy winner, you know what I'm talking about? He faced off with T-Mac, Tetairoa McMillan in college. Varying degrees of success. McMillan had a highlight one-handed catch, maybe one game where the stats weren't high, right? They two silverbacks, right? Just the 2 Rams butting heads on the side of a mountain, right? Just alpha athletes going at it. He said McMillan's the best wide receiver he's ever faced. So that's what number 1 wide receivers or number 1 corners are going to be facing. The 6'4" dude that a legendary unicorn of a player is already complimenting. Then the number 2 corners are going to be catching every kind of wily move in the book from Adam Thielen. He's tugging on jerseys when the ref isn't watching. He's hitting you with the ooh-woo, little you got you going this way. Ha, I'm going that way. And then the third, right? Either a slot corner or, you know, all the attention's elsewhere, no safety over the top, gets to face Xavier Legette and 4.39 speed at over 6 foot, 200 whatever pounds. The wide receivers got so much better if Tetairoa McMillan becomes 80% of his top potential. Now it's just up to everybody to make sure he reaches his top potential. But I'm guilty of it. I said it yesterday, right? Oh, this pick is all about Bryce Young. And it is. But also, if Bryce Young, gosh forbid, gets hurt and Andy Dalton comes in, he's going to be really happy they drafted Tetairoa McMillan too. Jump balls, right? He knows what to do.
I did this with A.J. Green for a lot of years.
I was just going to say it. A.J. Green, another, 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver, I believe ran like a 4.58, 4.6, something like that. I mean, it was pretty darn good for a pretty long time up there in Cincinnati. That could be actually a little used comp. Something that the ceiling of Tetairoa McMillan looks like A.J. Green.
I talked to Mike Kay of the Charlotte Observer last week, and that was his comp because
that's why Mike is who he is.
A.J. Green, 6'3" and 5/8", 211, ran a 4.5 flat.
4.5 flat. Oh, I thought it was slower than that. But still, that's
built very similar.
Yeah, pretty darn close. Pretty darn close. Throw the jump ball. So look at this. All right, now I'm going.
Go on.
Andy Dalton in the quarterback room has history of 6'5", 4'5" wide receiver, similar to Tetairoa McMillan. He can help Bryce Young out. Dave Canales, where did he come from as play caller? Tampa Bay. Who's their number 1 wide receiver?
Mike Evans.
6'5", probably 4'5", something, big, jumping wide receiver. He's in the quarterback room and can help Bryce Young. There's a lot of guys that know a lot about how to get the most out of that archetype of wide receiver. It is about Bryce. It's also just about getting the wide receiver room where those guys want it to be. And it's better now than it was 8 days ago. Yeah, and a week ago today was when they were making that pick.
Yeah.
Feels like forever ago.